Nah, man, this is for the content. That's it. There is nothing else to talk about here in the summer. It's the dead heat. It's dog days right here, and we kind of have no topics. So let's go out there and talk about one of the more crazier ideas that popped up that you could actually argue is a thing, but in which I'm not going to actually argue for. You know? Like, making a video about it doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with it, it's just an idea. We're not saying this guy's gonna be as good as Cale Makar, but still, we could go out there and hope. Let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks 2023 first-round prospect. I said 2023 because the Canucks did not have themselves a 2024 first-round prospect. Instead, we are heading over to last year because when it comes to Tom Willander and his entire profile, there are some very interesting comparisons that you could make when it comes to his point production. This isn't technically a 1 year later video, although you could go out there and say it has the same soul. We're going to make a regular 1 year later video about Willander later on in the summer, mostly because I want to focus as well on his draft eligibility and what the expectations were heading into the 2023 NHL Draft, not just all the stuff that happened after. But the Vancouver Canucks grabbed themselves Willander with the 11th overall pick, and in his Draft +1 season, the 6'1", 179-pound right-handed defenseman from Sweden had himself a 25-point year in 38 Boston University games. 3.7 games for Team Sweden at the World Juniors, which is great, considering that he was only 18 years old at the time of the tournament. He'll have more World Juniors to come, and he'll have more time in the NCAA to come as well. But when you think about these numbers, I wanted to take a look at a tweet made by Hughes for Norris. This was from 14 days ago, so about 2 weeks ago, and they went out there and posted this: that Tom Willander had a higher points per game, 0.66, in his Draft +1 year than Cale Makar did, a 0.62, in his Draft +1 year. Willander was a +28, Cale Makar was a +9. He also did not get any power play time. He is untouchable, by the way. So the argument here, just by going off of point production, is that Tom Willander may be in a similar territory to Cale Makar. Now, that's not explicitly stated anywhere in this tweet. It's just saying, hey, Willander had more points per game than Cale Makar. And if you wanted to go over to the compare and contrast tool, yeah, that's exactly it. Let's go over onto Elite Prospects. Tom Willander, Cale Makar, they're both right here. Willander, in his draft-eligible year, had himself all of this in the regular BK junior scene in Sweden. Cale Makar, in his draft-eligible season, had 75 points in 54 games in the AJHL. The Brooks Bandits, this is, of course, Junior A hockey in Alberta. It's not the WHL, it's not the OHL, it's a step below that. So, Cale Makar was lighting this league up on fire, he was drafted 4th overall because of it, and Tom Willander had himself his season in Sweden, which allowed him to go 11th overall. Now, you might be thinking, okay, wait a minute, why are the numbers a little bit skewed here? Draft eligibility is all over the place. Yeah, it's because when you take a look at some of the birth dates here, Cale Makar was an October 1998 birthday, so he was a late 98, therefore eligible for 2017 and not 2016's draft. Meanwhile, if you go over to Tom Willander, he was an early 2005 birth date. So it's a little bit different because the 18, 19-year-old seasons are differentiated on Elite Prospects, but if you just talk about draft eligibility, this season in the NCAA at 18 years old, this was Tom Willander's first NCAA year and his Draft +1 year. Cale Makar had his Draft +1 year, getting 21 points in 34 UMass games. So Willander had more points in only the same amount of games played extra, which is a terrible way to say it. I just messed up that sentence really badly. But the points per game was higher in Willander's favor, 25 over 38, instead of Cale Makar's 21 over 34. Now, Cale Makar also was over a point per game for Team Canada at the World Juniors, and right away we were starting to see that this guy was an absolute game changer, and eventually he had himself the point per game season with UMass. He was the captain of that team. Did he win the Hobey Baker? Is that right? Hobey Baker. Yeah, he did win the Hobey Baker in that season's worth of play. He was fantastic. Eventually made his debut with the Avalanche, had 6 points in 10 games in the playoff run that they had. And then he didn't look back. He was a near point per game player every single year afterwards for the Avs. He was only under a point per game in his first NHL season. All the other years, way over a point per game. He had 90 points in 70 games played this most recent year. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say that Tom Willander, out of all people, has the opportunity to do that and more. But it is a nice name to be compared alongside of, to say that for at least some portion of your draft eligibility and prospect career, you were over Cale Makar. If you wanted to make things even more nice, it looks even better when you say, hey, Tom Willander in his 18-year-old season had this amount of points, which outscored Cale Makar's 19-year-old NCAA season, which happened in 2017-18. Like, the numbers and the age kind of differentiate themselves, but still, it is an interesting point to be brought up. However, what I did want to also talk about was why this is a little bit dangerous to think about. This was posted onto Twitter. Hughes for Norris did the thing, right? But then one of the replies is from Thomas Strantz. Be careful using points in this manner. Cale Makar led all defensemen on his team in points per game, and he was second overall in points per game on his team that season. Plus, no UMass skaters hit .9 points per game or better. Willander was second amongst defensemen in points per game and 8th overall on his team, and he played with 5 other skaters that hit .9 points per game. So what Thomas Strantz is essentially saying is, sure, the points might not be, in Makar's favor, but the production and the actual team performance is. Because Cale Makar was 1 in a million on this UMass team that was not all too great. Meanwhile, Willander was one of many who had a whole bunch of points and who had very significant production on his team. He was the second guy on defense in points per game, 8th overall on his team. Cale Makar was number 1 on his team in points per game and 2nd overall on his team. And then you have yourselves the reply. Putting it that way doesn't make it look as impressive. Haha, that BU team with such an offensive buzzsaw will be very interesting to see how it tracks next season. Now, of course, Strantz has a point. He's not going to go out there and spew misinformation here. If you head over to BU, they are stacked, man. Lane Hudson was the guy playing with Tom Willander at some points throughout the year, and if you've been a Canadiens fan or you've been watching this YouTube channel, you know exactly how I feel about Lane Hudson. That guy has the potential to do some fantastic things, but Macklin Celebrini, fantastic, Hobie Baker winner, Ryan Green, Chicago Blackhawks prospect, Quinn Hudson, Lane Hudson's brother, Luke Tuck, also another Canadiens guy, lots of players here that were just notable names. Even Jack Hughes popped in for this organization for a little bit. Of course, that's not the New Jersey Devils Jack Hughes, that's Kent Hughes, Montreal Canadiens GM's son, Jack Hughes. There's a lot of weird Hugheses around the NHL. It's kind of funny to see those connections, but either way, heading over to Cale Makar and his UMass year in his first NCAA eligibility season. Yeah, you can see right here that Mario Ferraro was the other guy. He's not really the most offensively gifted player, especially nowadays. Cale Makar was the guy that definitely took a stranglehold on this team offensively. But either way, this team is a lot worse than what the BU Terriers ended up seeing in this most recent season. So even though the numbers might look great when you talk about Tom Willander outscoring Cale Makar, at the end of the day, the team performance does play into it, which is why I'm not going to go out there and make this video saying, oh yeah, Tom Willander is going to be the next Cale Makar, he's going to be better than Hughes, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Plus the fact that they don't really play the same way either. I mean, Cale Makar was always a lot more offensively gifted. Tom Willander, I'd say, is a lot more of a stable two-way force with some good skating rather than a purely offensive-minded guy who could get 90 points in an NHL season. But either way, there are still some good things about both of these guys. Cale Makar, of course, is the best defenseman in the world, and Tom Willander is one of the better prospects in the Vancouver Canucks system, too. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about both of these guys, Tom Willander of the Canucks and Cale Makar of the Avalanche. Is this going to be Hughes versus Makar 2.0, except it's Willander instead? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99 and bye.